welcome back to Legend Has It. We are excited to be giving you
Part two.
the final section, part 2 of the solution to Dead Man's Gold, the hunt that was solved by Michael Franz. Again, another congratulations to him. We will be sharing part of his solution, as well as discussing how we came about creating this and what the correct solves were. So with that, last time we left off, where were we, Nate?
We were talking about John Peter Gabriel and how he had, in real life, a mining claim. And so when Thomas Clark says that he's going with his friend John G to his mine, the goal was to actually find that mine. It's a real life one, and it's called the Monitor Mine. And Andy he's going to share his screen.
Okay, this here is the open pit mine of Ray. Back in 1893, this was not an open pit mine. It was instead 4 separate mining towns. Yeah, there's one.
And this is just to the east, never eat soggy waffles, east of Phoenix and Mesa, just for everyone's reference.
Yeah, here we got Phoenix over here. All right. And then if you go up this little canyon right here at the top, was spelled incorrectly, but Pete's mine. We have here the Monitor Mine. This was the location that John Peter Gabriel was mining back in 1893. And this is where he and Thomas Clark supposedly were hanging out for a couple of months doing their stuff. And Thomas started hearing some rumors. You know, he'd go into town, get some supplies periodically, hearing some rumors that there were some people striking it rich up north. And he decided that they weren't striking the mother lode there at Pete's mine like Pete was pretty convinced they were going to have. So he decided he was going to strike off on his own.
I'm going to share my screen for a second. There you can see that pin, Goldfield, on the map. So Mike Franz, I'm going to go to his, the PDF he shared with us. Like I said, he put together a bunch of nice pictures. So in our legend, where Thomas Clark hears of tales of treasures not far, unearthed by a recent flash flood, this was a fun little clue. It's not necessary to solve it to progress, but it's kind of like just a bonus that we threw in there. And in fact, Mike did find it in 1893. So just a few months before this November entry in the journal, there was a flash flood near Goldfield. After the flash flood, a huge mother lode had been revealed. And as you can see here, the quote is, it's 30 feet wide, 200 feet long, 100 feet thick. I mean, this thing's gigantic. And by October of 1893, so just a month prior to that journal entry, said, the town of Goldfield was booming. 30 buildings, 1,500 residents. And so this is what we're alluding to, or what we had Thomas allude to. Again, it's not required to have solved this particular thing. So if you didn't, don't feel bad. But it is kind of a bonus that we wanted to throw in because it's like a really cool.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah, and something else that's interesting about this, if I remember correctly, they initially thought that this vein was much larger. However, after doing some mining and they get to the end of this mother lode, it just abruptly ends. And they discovered that this mother lode had been severed long ago because of a fault, and the rest of it was way down underground. And it's, to this day, it's never been found. But this mother lode that had risen up there that created the Mammoth Mine, that's what they discovered, and it wasn't as large as they thought it was. Okay, we'll go back to this map here. So there we go. Thomas Clark was hearing about people striking it rich up north. This is northwest, of here in Goldfield, and he decided that he wanted to give it a shot. So he heads down into this canyon, into Ray. He stocks up on supplies one last time, and then from there he heads north up the canyon.
North up the canyon, yep.
Some people thought it
you
was
look
this
at
canyon here, the Mineral Canyon, but that was not the correct one. It was this one here.
Yeah. If you look at topographical maps and you zoom out right there, you can kind of see it in the satellite image, but it's really prominent on topographical maps. That this canyon looks like a deep scar that cuts through that the whole terrain. And so, yeah, that's the canyon. It goes north for quite a ways, but right where the canyon does that little zigzag, there are a series of 5 impassable pools. Now, Thomas Clark, if he's going up, the moment he gets the first one, he can't get past it, so he's going to climb up out of the canyon and then follow it from above, as you see it there. Share my screen for a second. In case anyone's doubting us that these pools are impassable, Andy and I had actually discovered this after we had been boots on the ground. We weren't down in this specific area, but we had read extensively about it, and we had looked at a bunch of pictures, and we were mightily convinced that that was impassable. By the way, I got these images here. This is hikearizona.com. You can see that. But they're rappelling down to get to that first pool. Here they're jumping into the second one down here. I don't think you can get a horse through there very easily. Here's the third one, I believe. Possibly is the fourth one, but again, that's quite high up. You can
but the
see
point is,
if
you have a horse with a saddle that's heavy with the food and equipment, and you got a man on it, there's not a chance that a horse is getting through this anyway. But
yeah,
so he sees these pools. They probably gave the horse a drink, and then they hightailed it out of that canyon.
Also, Mike Franz also included a picture of that in what he shared with us. That we marked the impassable pool, and he includes a picture of it here as well. So, look like a cool area. Just be careful, because as we're reading about people who go there, it's easy to get hurt. So those are the impassable pools, or the impassable pool that he ran into. And then he continues on up north along the canyon.
Continues up north until this canyon stops going north and instead it starts heading east-west. And it's here that
it just kind of peters out and branches off.
Yeah, and it's here that he finds this little tiny pool right here. And if you're looking on Google Maps, you'll see that this little pool right here actually has a name. Anyway, this is where he stops. And this is where he makes the first mark on his map, because he supposedly found some evidence of there being some gold in the area. Now, that was purely made up. That was just part of the story. But this is where he camps
mostly us trying to get you there.
The next part, it says that he had hiked for a couple of days, and he marked a second spot on his map, which was 301.5 degrees from his first mark, which is, this is where he ends up. This, if you're looking on the program that's got a compass on it, you'll see there's 301.5 degrees straight over this way. And this actually intersects with a road that's there. So that was a fairly easy one. A lot of people got hung up on this one. This is one that we did not expect people to get hung up on, because we literally led you straight to it. But
yeah. And to clarify, that line is zigzaggy on purpose. So if you're finding 301.5 degrees and it doesn't look like our line there, that's a good thing.
Yes, 301.5 degrees is from this point to this point, but this zigzaggy line, to help you understand just how much effort we put into this, we actually mapped out his entire path. I kind of skipped along. I skipped over a bunch of it in this area because it's really rocky, but we did do that. We were looking at the topographical maps, decided from here he probably wanted to get a good vantage point. So this hill right here was higher up than the rest, so he probably would have hiked up into here. And then from there, looking around, he would have seen that these ridges over here were higher yet, and this terrain here just looks absolutely terrible. So we figured he would have come down into these canyons and followed this canyon and then hiked up this ridge where he would get to this point, which was a fantastic vantage point. And there are actually some nice trails leading up into here. It's a good vista. And from here, looking out, he'd be able to see that there was much less difficult terrain going in this direction than this direction. You have a lot of big tall mountains over here. This direction was much easier. So he continues on this way down this ridge, drops into this canyon, and then works his way through the canyon until it starts getting really hairy about in this area. It's really nasty here. So he jumps out of the canyon and heads along here and basically follows what is the road today up in here until he is tired for the day. He's satisfied with his progress, and he stops at this location right here, which is where he sits down and he sketches the horizon that we see.
So we kind of take you through that because we had, like Andy was saying, we had mapped out every little step of his entire path. And there were a lot of cool things. We spent a month just on that little path that Andy just went over, just studying it and looking at trails and historic maps and historic events and families that lived in the area and real people that lived in the area.
And then we didn't use any of it.
Fascinating history. But every time we wanted to include it, what would happen is we realized that it was obvious enough that you can skip a bunch of the clues and just jump straight to that. And so in the end, we ended up using none of all that research that we did, but it's fascinating. If you guys have a moment, look up the old hermit Revis that lived in that area.
And especially
the
incident.
Funny guy. I wish I could have met him.
Where he chased off a bunch of Indians naked. That's a hilarious story.
Yeah. So next time you're surrounded by people who are trying to gun you down, take a leaf out of Revis's book, strip to your birthday suit, and just scream and charge after them, and
they'll think
maybe you'll survive like he did. What a crazy old coot. Man, yeah. He sounds like a character. So this is a horizon picture from the legend, and Mike highlights where he thinks the are. Here's his 301.5 degree line, and he notices that it crosses the Apache Trail, which is a road. And so he begins focusing his attention there. And in specific, he says he notices this darker formation from, I'll scroll back up. That's right here. So he noticed that darker formation, and he wanted to focus on that to see if he could see anything that matches. And so he went to that exact spot, actually with a street view. So it wasn't a perfect match, but close enough that he figured that he thought that this thing here was that thing there. And you can kind of tell that looks, other things begin lining up a bit. If you go to that location and you hike over this little ridge that you see here in this photo, then you would see exactly this thing. And you see a deep canyon cut in right here in front of you. So Mike finds that spot and he's like, well, what's north, right? Roughly 2 miles north, takes you up towards the Salt River right there. He says, well, hey, that looks like a road. And he drops a marker, and that's where he heads. So when you get to that point, 2 miles north, if you go up the road, you can't really go any further because you're greeted with this. And as we made very clear in our agreement when you joined the hunt, and earlier, our first interview with Cal Lazars, there's no reason to go on restricted property, private property, government property, anything like that. No reason to trespass. But so at this point, there's an intersection of two canyons, one that heads north straight to the Salt River, and one that's east-west. It's more of a shallow canyon than the one heading north. This road is blocked that will go north. So the only good option then at that point is to look at the east-west canyon. And so, and Mike mentions that at first he kind of wandered a bit down into forbidden territory. Don't do that. Don't do that. But he was interested in this structure here. But then that's as far as he got that day. And then on his boots on the ground, he headed down the correct canyon.
All right, so
good.
I'll go ahead and I'll take you through the rest of Thomas Clark's travels, and then we'll get back into Mike's pictures and show you the pictures that he took. As Nate was saying, this here is the north-south canyon. That this canyon, when you're standing here at that gate looking down into this canyon, it is a very formidable looking canyon, steep slopes, but it's a beautiful vista. But there's no way that anybody would ever want to head down in there if they are trying to get away quickly. It would be slow going. Right. So
this satellite view is actually weird. It must be the angle of the sun or something, because it's actually, at least for me, it's really hard to make out that that's a canyon. But if you look at some topographical maps, it's extremely pronounced
and very deep. Anyway, so we figure up here on this ridge, this is where Thomas Clark was camping the night, and he woke up that morning to the sound of a Henry rifle shot out in the distance. Shortly thereafter, a mare comes wandering into his camp, slicked with sweat. The saddle bags are drooping. There's fresh blood on the saddle. No rider to be seen. He puts the pieces together and figures somebody is after this horse. Takes a look at it, finds it's filled full of gold, tries to pull a fast one, swaps the saddlebags with his, puts the heavy saddlebags on his horse, and he takes off down the canyon, but not before another shot rings off and tears through his left side. This is where Thomas is shot, and he is now running down into this canyon. And again, it's hard to see from this view, but actually once you get past this point, the view is very obscured from anywhere else. This hill right here and also this rock formation, it completely blocks anybody's view from being able to see further down into this canyon unless you're standing right up here. He manages to drop down into here, and getting around these rock formations is able to evade capture for the time being. And it's along this trail that he sees a formation here that looks like a church. It looks like nothing. We'll get to that.
Nothing at all from the satellite.
From here, he sees this church. He wanders toward it, and he climbs up onto this cliff face right there where he sees a boulder that's just as tired as he was. And he leans up against it, his back west, his face facing east, having his face warmed by the rising sun against this boulder. And it is here that he spots the location where he is hiding his treasure, which is right here in this little pile of boulders right there.
When we said that you're not going to spot it from a satellite image, this is what we were talking about. Like even us knowing where it was, it's very difficult for us to actually recognize it.
Us about 10 minutes to actually find this place, and we knew where it was, GPS coordinates and everything, but we finally found it.
Yeah, in fact, what helped us was that in that key photo, slightly in the background, there's kind of this little bushy thing and another boulder in the background. Mm-hmm. And if you zoom back in,
there's that bush and there's that boulder.
Yeah.
And in the key photo, right above that boulder is where we blocked out the horizon in white.
So this is that point 2 miles north. So this is what I was saying. There's a canyon that continues north, and then there's an east-west. On the topographic map, it's very easy to see this very pronounced canyon. Whereas in that satellite image, for some reason, it's just hard to, it must be the lighting. Here is that hill that he goes around. He goes around this hill. The church is right about here. So that rock then is just slightly uphill, kind of at the base of this cliff right there. All right, so there's that little bushy tree and that boulder that we had mentioned from the satellite image. You see it's at the base of the cliff. Right now, you're back up against this tired boulder. Well, what does a tired boulder look like? Okay, see, exactly. Here we go. He gets shot, goes around this hill, out of sight. So the church rock is back there. And as you're standing right at this point, right about here, looking this direction, looking down the valley, this is what you see. And as Mike says, he says, this formation became obvious to me, looking right here. And in fact, he zooms in and snaps a shot right in front of you. And in fact, that is exactly what we were thinking of too. That kind of looks like a bell tower, and you have a bit of the body of a building here. And so Mike, he went straight to it and then pulls out his binoculars and he notices, so it would be in this photo here, right over here. It's just out of view, but here's the cliff face and here's a really big rock, a huge boulder that's just leaning sideways, leaning against the cliff face. Yeah, he correctly assumed that that must be a tired rock. And here he is standing in front of it. So the boulder that is in the key, the foreground, right in front of you, is this guy here. So if you go and stand at this point at the bottom of this leaning rock, and then turn 180 degrees, you will see this. Here's the image we provided. Here's the picture that he snapped, and we see that it clearly lines up. And we liked it because, the shape of a boot or a sock or whatever this is a little bit misleading perhaps because there is no such shape here. But the details in all the colorations we figured you can't fake it. And yes, we have, just to be 100% sure, we compared it, and yeah, it's exactly right. And then he found the token that we had hidden. There it is. And there is the selfie he took of himself, having succeeded at finding Thomas's treasure.
And Nathan, why don't you scroll down a little bit more? Show them the pictures of the coins if you have it there. So one side of these coins, we always have our symbol, our Legend Has It symbol, which is a stylized compass. There's some cool things about it. We could tell you about it later. But on the opposite side, there's always something unique related to that specific hunt. And on this hunt, we chose the saguaro cacti. In the center is a symbol that is shared by many Native American tribes. Sometimes they take varying shapes and sizes, but they all basically have the same meaning and purpose. And this is showing the path or the journey of life that a person takes. There are many twists and turns. There are some dead ends and times when you have to turn almost completely around and headed in the next direction. But eventually everyone ends up in the center, which is a representation of heaven. So this was the journey of life in an area that was inhabited by many different Native American tribes, we thought this was a very appropriate symbol to be putting on this coin for this hunt.
Yeah, and it's metaphorical for the journey people would go on to solve the hunt, boots on the ground and get there. And also Thomas dies, so I guess there's also kind of a reference to him too. Like, yeah, that was his journey in life.
Yeah, so let me share my screen one more time. Mike Franz, he made it to the correct spot. He found the treasure here. And after this, to continue on with just to the end of the legend, Thomas Clark then makes his way down through this canyon. And at some point, he stops, he fills out his last journal pages, tears them out, stuffs them in a bottle, and it's game over for him. But eventually the rains push the bottle down into the Salt River, where they eventually make their way down into the Gila River, where it was found 70 miles east of Yuma, Arizona. And that's the answer to the legend of Dead Man's Gold. This is the legend that Nate and I came up with for your entertainment and to hopefully give you all the thrill of the adventure of treasure hunting again. You know, Forrest Fenn's treasure hunt was fantastic. Unfortunately, it's over, but hopefully you can all find that thrill of the chase, that thrill of the adventure once again through our treasure hunts.
Yeah, that's our entire goal, at least. You know, we just want to keep that spirit alive, the adventure alive. We want to keep, you know, I don't know, it was fun for us too. We're just hoping other people are having as much fun as we are.
Yes, absolutely. And this next hunt that's coming up, it is exciting. It's a very different feel from this one. You know, we've got this one where we were relied heavily on the historical aspect, which a lot of people really loved. They thought that was great. They loved learning about the history of Arizona. This one has a very different feel to it. We're excited about it. It's going to be great. So we hope that you will stick with us. We'll be coming out with it at some point this summer. And we are currently looking for people who would like to have their names input into our next legend as one of the characters. If you want to learn more about that, you'll find the details on our website. If you are a business owner, want to sponsor us with your business, you can find some more details about that on our website as well, or contact us directly. We're more than happy to answer your questions. Email us at contact@LegendHasIt.net. We're always checking the emails, answering them as quickly as we can. But we are so excited for this, guys. The more people that come, the merrier. We are going to get this treasure hunt started off at a much higher price than Dead Man's Gold did. So that's exciting for us.
We're pumped. We're pumped for what's coming. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. And
we'll see you next time.
Happy treasure hunting.